Good afternoon, LinkedIn friends, Value First Nation. Welcome to another episode of Value First Platform. Today we're talking about data management with AI, and good friend Trisha here with us. How you doing, Trisha?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here.
Me too. Me too. A lot of stuff going on, so I'm like swirling around in my head. What are we been talking about today? Luckily, because we're always around the topic of how we're using Breeze and AI, like all we're about on this series is understanding how to use AI wherever, whenever to do all the great things we're told it can do for us, with us. Um, and today you had a couple of great use cases in mind that you've had some success with. And also, as I get into doing more coaching sessions, understanding the nuances of when to talk about HubSpot specific stuff versus AI specific stuff versus business strategy specific stuff is becoming clearer and clearer. And I guess for this conversation, business strategy, like let's call it business context and its
Mhm.
importance in all of this, right? Um, so what are you excited to talk about today?
What you haven't revealed to me exactly what we're going to be talking about for my examples. So really excited for anything that comes my way. However, one thing that's sort of top of mind for me is that Casey and I do a weekly show on HubSpot AI for beginners. And we've just been, like inbound, all those agents got rolled out. So we've just been plowing our way through all the agents. This week, we decided to just take a step back and look at the foundational documents that you use with agents to make sure that they are following your business process, doing things in your voice, that they have some context about your business, and doing like one before you do the other is really hard for the horse. And it kind of feels like if we're going to talk about data modeling slash data management today, same thing, maybe, that if you don't have like a well thought out architecture to begin with, all the rest just becomes even more difficult.
Yep.
And can you use AI to fix a messy data structure, or is it really only useful starting something new and beautiful? That's the thing that I've been running into a lot, is that I see a lot of like right now use cases. If you're building something new, most of what I'm doing is fixing stuff that's very complex and already lived in and built out.
Yep. And I think that's a challenge at hand for most people. And this is where me as a, say, AI advocate, uh, a lot of this makes it super clear to me as why there's been 50% adoption rates of CRM, why we haven't, how bad it's really been. Because if like AI, if you give it a blank slate, like you mentioned, things feel great a lot of the times. Like things are easier. Like there's no, it doesn't run, there's no misunderstanding of what we mean when we say certain things. But then you drop it into, it's basically this learning curve on both sides that has to happen at a one-to-one human with AI with your HubSpot portal level, where you cannot rely on any other best practices or standardizations. Like I'm going to be talking about this with Zach right after this as it relates to sales and revenue, because the traditional approach to things like HubSpot is just like we got to get in there and we got to start doing stuff, like onboard me like as soon as possible, and it turns into onboard to HubSpot, the product. And then we get in there and inevitably it's like, oh, we don't want to call it companies. We don't want it shouldn't be called this. Like, you run into terminology, and these terminology differences and confusing ways that we talk about things, like, kills AI's effectiveness because it's natural language, and so much of business is unnaturally using like unnatural language in the way that we don't the way that a good example is creating lots of different custom objects to manage addresses when there is a specific object designed to do that already in the data model, right? Just because that felt like a good idea at the time for a lot of businesses. That's the way we do things here. So we need to call it that. We can't change the name of the company record. So we're going to make a custom object that does almost the exact same thing, but now it matches with this other system that is not in HubSpot. And we need to like all of the unnecessary complexity that's been created. We're feeling that friction right now. The best part is that we're feeling it. We haven't been addressing it like forever, for like in 20 years, right? We've been trying to like, oh, hopefully HubSpot's just going to make it easier and stuff's just going to work out of the box. And, or we'll pay $20,000 a month and somebody else is going to worry about that problem for us. And so that learning curve, so that for me, as far as highlighting how bad SaaS has been in terms of getting people to adopt good practices for the right reasons and not just because the product says it this way. So that's how we're going to say it as a business, right? Everybody ends up in workaround mode. And what we're seeing, and AI doesn't do well if everybody's using workaround. Like, okay. Also, what I ran into today is continue to be reminded about how fast HubSpot has moved forward. Right. And so I was working with Riley earlier today about doing this rebrand of conveying your message. And I need to show this on the screen because it's going to be pretty impactful. Also leads to like, we're talking about Breeze AI sometimes we've been talking about Claude, how differently they operate, right? I had been working with Claude to say like, all right, I need to get serious about this rebrand if I want to launch by such and such date, which is next week. And let me start to align with the people that are suggesting that they want to help, right? Well, Riley is one of those people, thankfully. And so we make a checklist of all the things, domain changes, DNS setups, like all this stuff. This is happening in Claude. Then as I start to align with Riley today, I'm like, you know what? Let me just ask Claude via MCP to make these tasks in HubSpot. Claude decides I'm going to make them as tickets. I'm going to make 20 ticket records in HubSpot, right? I'll show them here. I don't think I deleted them yet, right? So and I'm like, okay, probably reaching the end of my line in this chat. So I don't really want to go back and forth with Claude to fix this, right? So let me go in and just tell Breeze, like, hey, can you see, we started with, can you see the tickets that were just created? Right? Because usually if we can get Breeze to a good current state, understanding, we can then just say like, okay, I need it to be like that, except over here. Right? So he shows me, first of all, like the power of this, like, oh yeah, I see those records. Here's links to all of them. Right? So many people could find value out of that. Right? But then it's like, this is a sample of the 20 most, it's not a sample, it's the whole list.
It is the 20.
I say they were supposed to be made as tasks. Can you turn them into tasks, please? He wants confirmation on how he's supposed to do that, right?
Mhm.
And tasks is one of these like half objects right now that they're continuing to develop. Sometimes you can do things like other objects, sometimes not. As projects, right here, we're on a project record. Spoiler alert for anybody that doesn't know, projects exist in HubSpot now. It's got their own record view and everything. So he's confirming. It appears HubSpot only allows associating tasks to projects from the project record and not the other way around. That is not correct. But what's interesting is the barrier that we're running into here is that I can associate from the tasks to a project via the UI. Breeze cannot do this via the API because the API is not as robust for this very new thing that's happening in HubSpot right now.
Mhm.
So eventually, we get to the point where he's got to create the tasks and have them associated with something. He's thinking that's a requirement. Maybe it is now. I haven't checked, but we just associate it with my. First, it was the tickets, and then we used my contact record just so they could get in the system. And then once they're in the system, I could manually associate them with this project record.
Did you have to do each one individually, or could you batch
Yes.
them?
I mean, I chose to it and try hard to figure out if I could batch them. But it's definitely like the only way I could do it was where the side card would come out and like you have to manually do things. But what's interesting is we know there's also situations where you cannot do things via like manually via the UI, but you can do them with the API.
Yes.
Association type things, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the chances that Breeze is keeping up with, like, this is where I told Nico, right? Like Hub Helper Harry has zero chance of being perfect in terms of the answers because HubSpot ecosystem and customer platform as a whole is imperfect right now. There's no way to get to perfect information because everything is moving so fast, right? Meanwhile, the outcome here is cool. But again, this is a use case you're not going to find anywhere. So even if I ask Breeze, like, hey, help us do this the right way in HubSpot. Like, also, as he did this, because I didn't provide specific instructions, he just decides to truncate the name.
Oh, honey.
Like, literally, like, oh, we
Convert
converted
from
this.
that to.
We converted this from this whole title, but I'm just going to decide that these are extra characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, learning curve on both sides. And if this was, we're going to get to where we need to go, but understanding this part of the learning curve where I could vary how prescriptive you need to be and when is super important when you're expecting AI like to do mission critical like stuff for you right now. I do get excited about assistants and agents. Like there's an onboarding agent that just came out, right? That's going to be able to say, closed one deal, create project with this group of tasks on it. You're going to be able to give it like Claude decided to do the day 4, day 1, day 2 things, right? Which I kind of liked as a nice, high level way to separate tasks. But you're gonna have to be prescriptive in how you want them named and like all the variables, how they get filled out.
Mhm.
So this was a fresh example of, it's easy to get like frustrated and upset with AI not being able to do what you're asking. But when you think about how hard it is for humans to keep up with HubSpot right now, has the same problem. It's working in the same environment that we are,
Mhm.
and um, it's gonna have gaps. So again, as much as we love HubSpot for the uh, for my favorite platform available for any business to build on, it's speed. It's like the speed of development and across all of their product teams creates these gaps where their goal is North Star, like by a certain kind of time, right? So everybody's moving towards that in their
Mhm.
various ways. And by the time they get to things like workspaces and even projects, right? Like when you think about what's happened up to now to make Gantt charts, like all the different view changes they needed to do on the index pages and all the different things, like even cards, the ability to do tasks like this on a card.
Mhm.
This is because of how quickly they've moved on CRM card, you know, development,
Mhm.
right? All these things roll up to, I think, creating uh, the most effective place, in my opinion, to unify business context so that AI can do the work for you. But there's it's a learning curve. That's all there is to it.
It is
And
not.
that's where it's fun when I saw your message about one of the common use cases people complain about is reports, and to hear that you have done some
It worked. I
successful
finally got a
stuff.
report to work. I've
Right.
tried numerous times with like where like there's various little entry points to AI within HubSpot, right? And trying to get it to build a report for me, simple reports. And they have failed every time. But I gave it another shot yesterday and like bing, bang, boom. It was like, it was on a roll yesterday, on a roll.
So tell us about it. Like what went into that, and like, is there anything you can think of for why it worked this time versus not the other
I,
times?
okay, I feel like it's changes on the back end because I don't think I would have described what I was trying to do yesterday any differently a month ago or 2 months ago. I think it would have been kind of the same. So I just feel like it's getting smarter. And there was a shift that I've seen, and who knows, maybe it is me as well, but a month ago, 2 months ago, most of my interactions with Breeze were pretty unsatisfying. And definitely just as you encountered with this example, I ran into something yesterday where it's like, I can't do that. I'm like, no, honey, you can do that. I know you can do that. Stuff like that happens all the time. But something that's changed for me is that I almost never call the HubSpot support line anymore. Like never. And I'm already at a point where I never call them. I only call them because there's something I want to do and there's no knowledge base article for this thing. It's so specific, and it's usually very specific to my portal as well. And being able to use so anyway, now every day starts with just asking Breeze first. Ask Breeze first. And it has become this week we're on a roll. It's been giving me more assistance than failing me. The balance is skewing towards being very helpful and completely. I had one call I had to make to support this week, but it's starting to replace the call line.
Starting to replace the calling?
The like calling HubSpot support.
Oh, right.
Don't need them. Don't need them like nearly as much as I have in the past. Breeze is doing more of that for me.
That's a powerful statement.
Mhm.
And I know HubSpot knows that too, and especially when that team of all others like has trouble keeping up with what HubSpot can do and can't,
Mhm.
and for who, and how much it's going to cost, and all of these things.
Mhm.
Right? I know that there's on some level they're banking on AI like being the right solution for a lot of the problems that we run into support wise. Because the scale of the platform is just like 100x right in the
Mhm.
last 2 years. Um, so interesting. Uh, Casey here is gonna do similar things. As I didn't do it, I didn't do properties or workflow stuff, so I'm not sure how that was.
I don't know what she's talking about. Yeah.
But uh, it's basically when you can get a clear understanding of in that chat, in that moment, confirming what Breeze knows it can do and what else is going on in the portal, those chats go very well. I
Mhm.
do think what you're alluding to as far as back end, and I think you're referencing like AI itself getting better for
Mhm.
various reasons, but also you have to imagine the product team is on the other side asking AI, like, what is confusing about our product? And I honestly believe that's probably what led to the change from lists to segments, right? And terminology changes.
Mhm.
Like, if they get suggestions from AI that it's causing problem, like I'm having trouble making reports because this is if you run into these issues, you should always ask, why did you do that, Breeze? Like, what else could I do differently next time? What information was
Mhm.
missing? Right. And it'll say, well, I thought you meant this when it's clear you meant this, or I don't know exactly what this means, or this is what I see this person like the HubSpot documentation refers to that thing for this purpose, and you're using it for this purpose. Right. Lists, it's like the more general a word is just you would expect there to be natural like friction in terms of like we're seeing actively with lists and segments. It's like segments make sense from a very marketing audience specific perspective, which as they build out marketing studio and customer journey mapping and pathfinding, like segments makes 100% sense to me. And if you can align on what it means, then I would imagine AI is going to have an easier time like helping you with that. But then as the moment you go to, I'm not going to call a list of orders. I mean, maybe you will, but there's other objects that aren't people or
Mhm.
companies
Mhm.
that you want lists of those things. You don't necessarily want segments of those things. Um, So I would bet that a lot of that is happening. And as they make the back end infrastructure and even some of the front end infrastructure, they make those kinds of updates. That's helping overcome a lot of previous challenges related to AI trying to do stuff, for us.
Mhm.
Um, you had another use case that you shared. Um,
Mm. Yeah. So I'm not necessarily working on it, but I was helping a friend of mine take a look at they had a merger. They've got two HubSpot instances, two Salesforce instances, and so they're planning to merge things. Um, and I've
into
never
one and one.
to to one HubSpot instance, one Salesforce instance.
Okay.
Okay, and the first question I had is, how do you approach that? Do you create a wholly new thing that's a true merge of like all the HubSpot stuff into a new HubSpot instance, which then has to merge into a new Salesforce instance? And That broke my brain, Chris. Didn't want to think about that. So anyway, that's one approach. The other approach is to kind of like align on one HubSpot instance and migrate the other HubSpot portal into that. And that instance is already integrated with Salesforce, and the Salesforce people would have to work with whatever happens there as well. But I was like, well, how much of this could AI do for us? How much could they do? And obviously, I was thinking of you as I was looking at this. There's some kind of way where you feed it a whole lot of information and tell it to create that, like, that freshly merged thing. And I'd be interested to hear what you think about that. But then the other option is, like I said, to just merge one hub, pick one, and they're probably going to pick the one that already has HubSpot CMS and a website, merge the other one into it that doesn't. And then what can AI do? And a lot of the, the data prep stuff that needs to be done, there's a whole lot of stuff that needs to be, for example, you might have, well, obviously you got lifecycle stages on both HubSpot instances, but the stages might be different from company to company. So the values underneath each property have to match in order to, and I see AI being hugely helpful in identifying those discrepancies rather than having to force somebody like me to find all of those. I don't want to do that.
Right. And as you mentioned, the complexity of option number one is hard to think about as a human, but I think that's the right answer. And the reason you want it as an option is because I think we know it's the right answer, because otherwise we're going to be beholden to tech debt somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is where migrations go wrong most of the time, especially almost every time when it's working with HubSpot. Like, if you're moving something to HubSpot, it's because you probably want to do things better or differently. So bringing your Salesforce data model into HubSpot, it's going to make zero sense. Bring your WordPress website, like copy and pasting that, like the way that people want to migrate pages, makes no sense, because then you don't get the best features available to you in HubSpot CMS, because they have to be built into the website. So I would definitely try to use AI from a, hey, we're bringing these two systems together and we want to do things better, or at least saying this is why we're bringing the two systems together. This is where I think AI and HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever, like the product is not going to solve for this. Like, and what comes to mind is a couple weeks ago when I was at a local trade show from the material science space that I'm from. A surprising number of HubSpot conversations popped up. That's not what I was there to do. And even more surprising, people moving into HubSpot because they have a new parent company. They got purchased, and the purchasing company has HubSpot, right? But one of those sales reps shared, I don't know how it's going to work, because the parent company refers to these industries in these ways, and I have a drop down that's required to be filled out, and half of them don't matter for the industries that we're targeting, and it's not going to have the industry options that I need. Those kinds of things are where, if you don't rethink the data model, like, you're never going to have an adoptable outcome for those people. Like, they're going to either not use it, or they're going to fill out whatever industry they need to move on. And your data is going to be bad in both cases. Right? So I know AI can be valuable in that situation, but can you even get to the place where you can make that decision effectively? That's not just, oh, that seems like a lot of work. We're just going to use the portal with CMS in it and then figure it out, like as we bring data over. And what we're actively running into is like, well, it's been named this way. It's been done this way. So we're going to let that impact our decision making, even though we've all agreed that that way sucks. And it's just so much like tech debt and sunk cost thinking that traditionally, like, you have had to make those decisions because there isn't enough time in the day. And you can't just take 4 weeks off to reset and rethink and have everybody involved to build a better system. Now that AI is involved, you got to try and find those ways that it can help you do that. But people aren't even used to making those choices because they feel like they're so unattainable. Like,
Okay, well, let's break this down. Maybe you can help me understand what's attainable versus not. The data modeling on the HubSpot side of things, what I see as feasible, possible, helpful from AI is give AI all of the information on these two different businesses, what they do, maybe even why they were purchased, how they complement each other, all of that. The desired future state for these businesses. And then tell me what an ideal like merge state looks like. However, I'd want it to work as much as possible within the existing Salesforce, like how Salesforce is mapped already. Because that's where I'm like, you got to work with the existing Salesforce implementation. It's too much to try to like get the Salesforce team on board to like revamp their whole thing at the same time.
Yeah, I think I just pass on advice.
No.
Because, like, there's just so much baggage related to the existing systems.
Yeah.
And any change management experiences that we've been through with, oh, another CRM. Yeah, it's going to solve all our problems. We've been through this before. Like, where when I was on site last week, literally walking through process, like, you say you want to bring this process from this other software, like this whole revenue stream. You were going to do it in NetSuite. It's failing you because of the way it was executed, and they overpromised, et cetera, usual SaaS stuff. Okay, we're going to come on site and walk the process and talk to everybody who's involved. All the different roles have to be identified and represented in the feedback that we're getting. And within the first 30 minutes of us being there, I said, you guys need to give yourself permission to raise your hand at any time and say, that doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why we currently do it that way, or why the way you're suggesting, Chris, is correct. Like, I don't know what those words mean. I've never understood why we do it this way. And for me, like, the migration or the trying to improve it without those conversations is just setting up for failure, because the expectations aren't being managed effectively, right? And what my guess would be is the reason for those consolidations are for cost, or the illusion that it makes the system easier to maintain. And I say it's an illusion because if you still don't have the adoption that you need, because the system actually isn't built for the business, it doesn't make it any easier to maintain from like a business value perspective, yeah, you might have less fields to clean up, but is it actually like supporting the people to get the job done, like without them having to go outside of the system? Yeah. So, and that's where if there's not even permission to have those conversations in this moment of change, because it's gonna it creates a change behavior, and like people are going to experience change whether you involve them in the process of deciding what it should be or not. Like if we don't even have permission to say, hey, what could be better right now, then for me the culture required to, I just want to put people in a place to be successful, Trisha. Right. Like it's because a lot of work is going to go into that, whether no matter which option you choose.
Mhm.
Right. And like the worst kind of work, I think, is in the second option. An immense amount of data prep work is going to be required outside of either system to normalize the data in some way, shape, or form. And almost all of that is effort that cannot be like built upon, and it's just for the purposes of this one-time project.
Mhm.
Which for me is just a flag of like probably not the best way, probably not the most ROI can be gained from this time, and it furthers the narrative that it's like, oh yeah, we're just doing it for not for me as a user and not for our customers. Like there's some other business reason we're doing this. So yeah, I'll go along to get along, but you're not going to get more than that. So probably super helpful.
So it sounds but it does sound like you do have an opinion here, which would be that you would migrate, you would merge the HubSpot instances and do that in parallel with changes to Salesforce. And the way that I think it's kind of working right now is I don't know. For some reason, it feels like with one of the companies, the Salesforce instance doesn't really matter. Like maybe it already parallels the other company's Salesforce. I don't know. I don't know why I have that impression. But anyway, if it's just one Salesforce that you're really worried about, and you've got the two HubSpot instances, kind of feels like you're saying you would, from the get-go, plan like a whole new journey where it's a whole new HubSpot to a whole new Salesforce and just do the whole thing at the same time.
Yes.
How do you convince a company that that's less work in the long run? How do you get them over that line?
I'm trying to unify around the goals. Like, so unified customer view, unified revenue view, unified business context, and unified team enablement. Right. And unified in this case clearly has to be some combination of HubSpot plus Salesforce. Right. Which is why we can't just say we're going to focus on one system and not the other. Because like I definitely see it as a systems conversation. And I'm still a believer, even though I love HubSpot, the best system is the one that gets used like by the team. And like starting from a place of, do we agree that unified customer view is important? Like, and we want it as a business. And then holding people accountable to making decisions that support that and not decisions that do not. So like, if we can't get to that thing in Salesforce or HubSpot, we should not do it there, should not try to suggest we can do it there, or suggest that our team is going to try and work around and like, yeah, agreement on the business goals first, and those specific, like, generalized goals, trying to work backwards from there. I'm trying to work on a framework right now. Like, I think we can relate the kinds of questions that we want answered by the system to one of those 4 goals, and start to work backward of like, okay, if you agree on unified customer view, well, first of all, Salesforce can't give you any of the marketing data that you want. And there is a place in HubSpot now for all the rest of the data. So does it make sense to have the unified view there? Can still have our sales team work in the other system, but for us as a business, unified view is going to be in HubSpot. Maybe unified views manifests in unified revenue view manifests in Salesforce, because that's where the best like deal or closed understanding comes from. Either way, it start to ask, and you start to be able to ask specific questions that tie to those goals, instead of, can we send out more emails? Like, that's a goal. Like, it's not a good goal, right? And I think that's where, when we get to property, like
Chris
property
Carolyn,
decisions,
always picking on emails.
I am. I mean, because here's why. Like, we announced an amazing, not announced, but we talked about an amazing update today with personalization, like true personalization at the largest scale, thanks to AI powered dynamic emails in HubSpot, which basically is going to require you to throw all of your email KPIs out the window if you choose to do this. But it's going to very quickly show you your data is not ready for it. And it will be very powerful. And if you have a goal, like let's say as a business, you have a goal of implementing loop marketing, you need this part to work. Like, if you want to send 1,000 people a message specific to them, which is what you're suggesting, if you want to do loop marketing, do you have the data in your system that AI can rely on to create 1,000 different messages that have a very low risk of being spammy or irrelevant or turning off the buyer or whatever, right?
And that's asking a lot. It's asking a lot of people's current data state, because the answer is most of them, their data is not in that space.
Right. And that's where all I can do in those moments is trying, like what you said you wanted to do, loop marketing, right? It's like, yeah, we agree with that as a concept. We know it's AI is required. Okay, now these are the steps we need to take to get the data right. It's not just, we don't want to deal with it right now, because that's very much going to be, I feel like, an all or nothing play. Like, either you're going to let AI do this for you or you aren't, because it does come back to data. It's hard for me to see the bridge of, we're still going to care about these old KPIs and let AI do a little bit of this stuff. Like, I don't know that there's an in between. Prospecting Agent has already proven an example. Like, if you use it and every subject line is different, the only way you can look at open rate as a success metric is if it's going up or down, And the only attribution you can make is with prospecting agent. Right? Like, is the AI a good choice to decide what the subject lines are? That's the only thing you can decide based on that metric. Like, unless you're going to go through all the subject, which you're not going to do. That's why you're using project prospecting agent in the first place. Right? So it's like, are you willing to give up control of this thing because of the scale required to do it? And AI can do it. I think HubSpot's giving us a bunch of great tools that can help us get our data right. But it's tough out there. I'll say that.
It is tough out there. I mean, there's many portals I've worked on where we haven't even tried to just do very basic first name personalization, because if you're accepting user generated content through forms, your first name is often not a pretty picture. So we were going to talk about data management today, data modeling. What are the first steps, Chris, to get ready for, like, I absolutely want to use this personalized AI generated one-to-one email format. What do you have to do to get ready for it?
I think it still comes back to the learning curve and understanding it and just starting to use this, right? That's why our use cases were pretty random. And I don't think they needed to be anything else, because it's just, if you think you knew that Breeze sucks at reports, right? We have a recent example that shows otherwise, right? The difference between what you might know at the LLM level of Claude and Chat GPT might not apply when you're using AI in HubSpot. Most of this it doesn't make any of them more right or more wrong. It's just, you have to understand how it works. Because if you don't, and then you jump into the email tool, like, oh, this is going to be great. And then it shows you the 5 examples of this is what the output's going to be. And you're like, well, if I think like these 2 look great, these 3 don't, why don't they? How do we investigate? Is it the data? Is it AI? Is it the prompts I'm giving AI? So I think for the most part, a lot of the damage that SaaS has done is making us believe there's always a playbook or best practice or template
I love templates.
that we
What are
can
you
use
talking
to
about?
like remove the critical thinking. And it's more important than ever. Because if you get this right, like, there's some really, really powerful, valuable things that you are already paying for access to that could do some great things, for your business. So maybe we'll figure out some more structured ways to do this content. Otherwise, it's, have you tried it yet? Have you tried Breeze? Like, have you started using AI on HubSpot yet? If not, why not? Love to hear from you. Otherwise, we'll keep sharing our own use cases. And yeah, I don't know that we can do it any other way, Trisha.
Or why would we? Because, as you know, my goal is to just stop doing much of anything other than just asking questions.
Yep.
I want to be chief question asker.
There we go. We need more people with that positioning for sure. Not chief answer giver is what that means. Okay, so I guess until we ask a bunch of questions next week, I hope everybody has a great rest of your Wednesday. Thanks so much, Trisha.
Thanks. See you guys.